Welcome, everyone. I am absolutely thrilled you're joining me for this explainer. Today, we're going on a seriously fascinating journey to demystify one of the most profound, deeply debated concepts in all of human history. We're going to explore how different cultures all around the world conceptualize the ultimate reality. So we aren't just looking at the idea of God from one perspective. We're exploring it through a massive global matrix of beliefs.
Okay, let's dive right in. To really grasp what we're going to cover today, I need you to do something a little challenging. Just for a moment, I want you to suspend your own cultural defaults. Whether you grew up deeply rooted in a specific faith tradition or absolutely none at all, ponder this one fundamental question. How do we actually define the ultimate reality? We're going to look into a conceptual taxonomy of global belief systems, and trust me, you'll see just how brilliantly diverse the answers to this question can be.
All right, so here is our roadmap. We're going to start by redefining the supreme being, break down frameworks like theism, deism, pantheism, and pantheism, and then we'll jump into some real-world examples, exploring the African supreme being, the Native American great mystery, and the Japanese kami.
Section 1. Redefining the supreme being.
So across the globe, there are over 270 large religious groups, and those are subdivided into thousands of smaller ones. And what's just incredible to me is the sheer diversity of mutually exclusive yet fiercely held beliefs about the nature of deity. At the core of all these traditions is one central defining dilemma. Is the divine solely transcendent, meaning it's completely separate from us, totally beyond human experience and the physical universe, or is the divine immanent, meaning it's acting within and maybe even making up the material world itself? How a culture answers that specific question literally shapes their entire worldview.
Moving on to Section 2, Theism and Deism Explained.
To make sense of the divine on a global scale, it helps to use a matrix of 4 categories: theism, deism, panentheism, and pantheism. Now, don't think of these as strict, rigid boxes, but rather as lenses through which different cultures view ultimate reality. Let's break down those first 2.
First up, we have classical theism. In this framework, God is understood as the absolute being. Basically, God is a complete, indivisible, ultimate person who created the universe out of pure love or will. This creator is omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent. But here is the key. While God created the universe, God is transcendent, totally separate from it. Yet in theism, this separate God doesn't just walk away. He remains actively involved in nature and human history. This is the foundational theology for major global religions like Catholicism, Orthodox Christianity, Islam, Judaism, and Sikhism.
Now, the crucial thing to understand here is the sharp contrast between theism and deism. While a theist believes God might actually suspend the laws of nature to perform miracles and can be reached through personal prayer, a deist views things very differently. Deism was a huge byproduct of the 17th and 18th century Enlightenment. Deists argue that a perfect creator simply set the universe in motion with perfect scientific and moral laws and then just stepped back. The logic goes like this: only an inept God would need to constantly intervene to fix a faulty world, right? So in deism, the universe functions perfectly on its own without any ongoing divine intervention.
Section 3, Pantheism and Pantheism.
Okay, now we're shifting gears to frameworks that completely blur the lines between the cosmos and the divine. Now, pantheism and pantheism sound incredibly similar, I know, but they are profoundly different. In pantheism, God and reality are identical. God literally is the universe, full stop. But in pantheism, the universe is within God, meaning God contains the entire universe, but also extends way beyond the limits of space and time.
Let's look a bit closer at pantheism. The word actually comes from the Greek pan, meaning all, and theos, meaning God. It holds that there is absolutely no divine being separate from the cosmos. Popularized in Western culture by the 17th century philosopher Baruch Spinoza, pantheism sees creation not as making something out of nothing, but as a manifestation of a primordial unity. Think of it like the concept of Brahman in some Hindu traditions, where the physical world and humans are just manifestations of the exact same primordial essence, and ultimately we will all return to it.
Now, contrast that with panentheism. This term was coined by the German philosopher Karl Kraus way back in 1828, and it brilliantly illustrates a middle ground. Panentheism features a very dynamic God that permeates, saturates, and infuses the universe from within. So God is fully immanent, but God also possesses an aspect that is external to the universe, making God genuinely transcendent too.
What's super fascinating here is the idea of a mutual bilateral relationship. In this view, God influences the universe, sure, but the universe also influences God. It's not just a static, unmoved sovereign watching from afar.
Section 4. The African Supreme Being.
All right, now that we've built our matrix, let's break out of those traditional Western labels. African traditions embody a beautifully paradoxical concept. The attribute of God's transcendence must always be balanced with his immanence. To many African peoples, the Supreme Being is so far or transcendental that he literally cannot be directly reached. He's often associated with dwelling far away in the sky. Yet paradoxically, he is so near and immanent that men can establish contact with him through acts of worship, sacrifices, and invocations. He manifests in natural objects and everyday phenomena, placing him right smack in the middle of the daily affairs of the people.
Because this God is fundamentally incomprehensible as a pure spirit, indigenous African peoples use the most profound, beautiful linguistic metaphors to describe his eternal nature. The Zulu call him the watcher of everything. The Banyarwanda, they say his ears are long, visualizing a God who hears absolutely everything without any limitation. The Ashanti refer to him as the fathomless spirit, recognizing that no human intellect could ever measure him. And the Bakongo simply and perfectly call him the marvel of marvels. These names describe this amazing, omniscient creative energy orchestrating the universe, brilliantly blending the transcendent with the immanent.
Section 5. The Great Mystery. We're transitioning now to Native American traditions, where the concept of the divine permeates every single creature, every object, and every landscape. Just listen to the words of Chief Luther Standing Bear of the Lakota Nation. He said, "From Wakan Tonka, the Great Spirit, there came a great unifying life force that flowed in and through all things. Thus all things were kindred and were brought together by the same great mystery." That quote brilliantly illustrates a worldview that is deeply animistic and actually borders on pantheistic. It's a view where a fundamental, sacred life force binds humanity and nature together as literal relatives.
Across different indigenous nations, this unifying force takes on various names, but it shares a deep, common resonance. In the Algonquin tradition, it's Gitchimenatu, perceived as an omnipresent fundamental life force manifesting in literally all things. In the Haudenosaunee tradition, it's known as the Creator, which, as lacrosse captain Lyle Thompson noted, lives in the sun, the moon, the earth, and in us. And going back to the Lakota, the activist Russell Means pointed out something really important. Translating Wakantanka as Great Spirit kind of misses the mark. A much more accurate translation is Great Mystery. It emphasizes a sacredness residing in absolutely everything that is ultimately way beyond human comprehension.
Section 6. Kami, Spirits of Nature.
For our final stop, we head to Japan. The Shinto tradition completely breaks the mold of classical theism. I mean, there is no single founder, no strict creed, no list of commandments, and absolutely no single omnipotent creator God. At the very core of Shinto is the concept of kami. Kami are defined as the deities, divinities, spirits, and natural phenomena venerated in the religion. But honestly, it goes way deeper than that. Kami represents a self-creative life force or natural energy that permeates absolutely everything, animate or inanimate. In Shinto, the divine is not separate from nature. The divine is of nature, and they possess positive and negative, good and evil characteristics, just like the natural world itself.
The great Kojiki commentator, Mudori Norinaga, summarized this idea perfectly. He wrote, "Any being who possesses certain outstanding qualities out of the ordinary, or who is impressive in nature, is called a kami." Think about how drastically this differs from the classical theism we discussed at the start of this explainer. The divine here isn't a singular, distant, absolute being hanging out in the sky. Instead, it is a multitude of extraordinary natural forces and energies surrounding us constantly, every single day.
Because this life force is everywhere, kami manifest in a huge variety of ways. They're found in striking natural landmarks like mountains, waterfalls, and ancient trees, which, by the way, is exactly why Shinto shrines are built near these awe-inspiring places where the spirits reside. But kami also include heavenly and terrestrial deities from mythology, the divine ancestors of entire Japanese clans, and even great human leaders who made immense contributions to society. Those leaders are actually enshrined as kami after death. And I have to share this truly fascinating detail from the Kojiki, which is Japan's first written history. The kami? They are not infallible, all-knowing gods. In fact, they act a whole lot like us. When faced with a big problem,
the kami actually gather together to discuss how to solve it. It is literally divine decision-making by committee. I love that. It perfectly highlights a deeply rooted cultural emphasis in Japan on harmony, consensus, and collectivism, reflected right there in the very nature of their divine.
Wow, we have covered an immense amount of ground today. We've gone from a transcendent creator setting the universe in motion to a God that literally is the universe itself, to the great mystery binding all living things, all the way to the spirits of the wind and mountains. So the absolute most crucial point I want you to take away from all of this is right here. If the ultimate reality can be defined in so many brilliantly diverse ways, how does your own cultural lens shape your connection to the world around you? I really want to leave you with that provocative thought. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the nature of reality. See you next time.